Mr. Garber, we're picking up something on the pheromone scanners.
Well, we've prepared a little trap for this predator. We are certain that this being can see in only one spectrum of light, infrared.
Engage ultraviolet units A through J. What's all this interference?
Correcting the problem, sir. Target's still moving, heading towards the number 2 stairwell.
Keith, he's right behind the third floor structure, right there.
Who is this? Clear the line.
Nitrogen gun safety's off. Everyone else lost control.
This is it.
In 1987, John McTiernan introduced the world to Predator, one of the greatest sci-fi action films of all time. We covered the movie in this massive video a few years back, links in the description.
Stick around.
The original starred Arnold Schwarzenegger as a soldier in Central America who comes up against an alien hunter that wipes out his team. Despite his initial fear, the heroic Dutch prepares himself for the ultimate battle and succeeds through his grit and ingenuity. It's the perfect example of man versus monster. With Hulu releasing the 5th entry into the franchise called Prey later this year, helmed by 10 Cloverfield Lane director Dan Trachtenberg, I thought it would be perfect to revisit Predator 2.
You son of a bitch.
The sequel that completely changes the setting and characters, while also expanding on the Predator lore in a few interesting ways.
You can't see the eyes of the demon until him come calling.
After the success of the original, 20th Century Fox wanted Jim and John Thomas, the brothers and first-time screenwriters who penned it, to write a sequel. In an attempt to court Arnold back, they presented a story that would pick up directly after the events of the first movie, one where Dutch would work with the government to track down and capture a predator. Unfortunately, due to a contract for Terminator 2, he was unable to return.
So Arnold went off to do Terminator 2, which was a much bigger project with one of the great directors in the world. I think in a way it was interesting not to have Arnold in it, because it just made it a really different piece.
Other ideas for the film included one that took place during World War II, where both German and American soldiers would team up after a predator started picking off their men, which could have been amazing if executed properly. The studio ended up running with the concept of a concrete jungle that was meant to juxtapose the setting of the first film. Several cities were discussed, but everyone eventually agreed on Los Angeles.
We always talked about what possible sequels there might be, and one of the fantasies we had is, what would this camouflage effect look like in an urban environment? What would he look like against concrete and steel in the cities?
Joel Silver returned once again as producer and courted Stephen Hopkins to direct. With Arnie out of the picture and all of the other soldiers killed off in the first film, work began on finding a new cast. For the lead, Officer Harrigan, Hopkins originally wanted Patrick Swayze. When that didn't pan out, he actually met up with Steven Seagal. Hilariously, and completely on brand, he wanted to change the character from an LAPD officer to a CIA psychiatrist who was also a black belt martial artist. I'm sure the Dalai Lama would have been humbled by his presence, but Hopkins wanted the lead to be a more relatable human, and less of a farcical caricature of an action hero.
It's not just an alien movie, it's not just a horror movie, it's a detective story, it's a mystery, it's a science fiction story, it's an action movie, and it crosses over into a lot of different genres.
With production looming, Silver ended up using actors he worked with on Lethal Weapon. Gary Busey was cast as Special Agent Peter Keyes, Steve Kahan as Sergeant Neil Rieger, and Danny Glover would play Lieutenant Mike Harrigan. There's something ingenious about swapping out a muscle-bound alpha king like Dutch for a tempered old cop that's out of shape.
You're getting too old for this shit.
Thankfully, Kevin Peter Hall returned to play a younger and more brash Predator in what would sadly be one of his last roles.
Drug lords wage bloody warfare in the streets. Yet another open conflict. Oh, this, get me out of here!
In 1997, Los Angeles is suffering from both a sweltering heat wave and a vicious street war between Colombian and Jamaican drug gangs, with the LAPD struggling to maintain order. As the police join the fight and bullets continue to fly, a lone young predator observes from a distance and joins the action to earn his stripes. When Lieutenant Mike Harrigan arrives and uses aggressive tactics to rescue injured officers by forcing the gang members inside, the cops rush in to find that they've been mysteriously slaughtered. Harrigan follows the only survivor to the roof, but is forced to shoot the man in self-defense before he can question him. As reinforcements arrive, he also catches sight of the Predator's silhouette, but dismisses it.
Must be loose.
Back at his precinct, Harrigan is introduced to Special Agent Peter Keyes, the leader of a federal task force investigating the cartels, and is warned to stay out of his way. That night, Jamaican gang members attack and murder Colombian drug lord Ramon Vega in his apartment, but are in turn slain by the Predator, which leaves only Vega's unarmed girlfriend alive. Disobeying orders, Harrigan's team enter the building and see one of the hunter's weapons stuck in the air conditioner, before being interrupted by Keyes and his men.
Hey, look, I know this is your show, but
Now, you're not listening to me. You got a big nose, and you're sticking it too far in my business.
The lieutenant arranges to return to the scene later with Officer Danny, but when Danny arrives first and retrieves the weapon they spotted earlier, he's killed by the hunter. There's plenty of gory action on display here. Unlike the jungle hunter, this younger and more petulant predator is much more brutal and not as cautious. And with the absence of Arnie's brilliant one-liners to lighten up the scenes, there's a weight to the violence. The city hunter is the hot-headed rookie to the jungle hunter's seasoned veteran.
We'll find Danny's killer.
Captain, Danny and I came up together. Whoever killed him is gonna pay. I'm gonna finish it.
Devastated, Harrigan vows to destroy Danny's killer at any cost. Secretly continuing his investigation, he learns from the city's chief pathologist that the weapon recovered was made from a completely unknown element. He then sets up a meeting with Jamaican drug lord King Willie, hoping to find some answers, and is told that whoever is involved, they're not of this world.
It's always the same. There's no stopping what can't be stopped. No killing what can't be killed.
More confused than ever, he leaves moments before the Predator claims King Willie. Jerry and Leona uncover information pointing to the city's slaughterhouse district, but on the way to meet Harrigan there, they are caught up in another Predator attack on the subway. Jerry is killed, while Leona is caught but spared because she was pregnant, part of the Yachuan honor code. For more on that, check out my massive playlist after this video. With this, Harrigan sets off in pursuit, following it to the surface and then across town, only to be captured by Keyes' team. The agents finally reveal that they've been trying to capture a Predator since the incident in Central America 10 years ago.
Trophies. That's the game, isn't it, Keyes?
You're the lion. This is his jungle.
Equipping themselves with insulated clothing to mask them from the hunter's thermal vision, and nitrogen sprays to freeze it, they idiotically attempt to capture it in the slaughterhouse where the creature feeds. However, it simply uses its helmet's alternative vision modes to spot the team's ultraviolet flashlights. As it begins to massacre the men, Harrigan escapes custody and arms himself. Moving to the rooftop, he chases the hunter through an apartment building and finally into the tunnels beneath the city, where he finds its ship filled with trophies from other hunts, including a xenomorph head. The two engage in a final duel, which ends when Harrigan kills the Predator by slicing it open with its own weapon. Exhausted, Harrigan suddenly finds himself surrounded by more of them and resigns himself to his fate. Instead of attacking, however, the creatures carry away their dead clanmate, before an elder Predator gives him an antique pistol as a sign of respect, and the ship leaves following the conclusion of this hunt. He flees as it takes off, just in time to avoid the remainder of Keyes' team. As they bemoan missing their opportunity to capture the alien, Harrigan tells them that they will get another chance. It would have been nice to see Arnie in this, no doubt. Like Dutch, Harrigan's vendetta is fueled by a desire to avenge his team, but unlike Dutch, who had no other choice but to fight, he has the ability to find safety, making his decision to hunt the alien mostly one of revenge and less of survival. Glover imbues his character with an unwavering strength, and despite seeing how many lives the city hunter has claimed, and the fact that he's physically outmatched, Harrigan is stern and resolute in his mission.
I don't give a f*** who you really are, what you want with this asshole. Because now it's personal, and he's a dead man.
While definitely lacking the humor and one-liners of the original, there are moments of comedy, like the scene on the subway.
Whoa! Get the hell away from me! Mine's bigger than yours! Hold it, please!
And the old lady that witnesses the hunter performing self-surgery. Bill Paxton's Lambert is used for comic relief, while Busey's unhinged special agent is playfully menacing. But of course it's Alan Silvestri's amazing score, used brilliantly to extend the suspense, and Kevin Peter Hall's physical performance that helps cement the foundation. You can see the alien's inspiration with the tracking system, and the interruptive special report segments from RoboCop, but the subversion of the slaughterhouse capture turning into a massacre more than makes up for this in my eyes. At its core, it's a sequel that manages to continue the story and add nice touches to the lore, all the while doing so with an entirely new cast and an entirely new setting. It's actually quite a wonder that it works as well as it does, not that jabronis thought so during its release.